Welcome to the three-part series, Go from Reactive to Fully Proactive with Graylog. We designed this series because these days we're all stretched. Log data is expanding in volume and complexity. To keep pace, most people are working in a reactive mode. We're going to walk you through how to become fully proactive so you can get that time back in your day. Hello, Jeff Darrington, Senior Technical Marketing Manager here at Graylog. Welcome to session 3. Moving forward from sessions 1 and 2, covering off search to notifications and then parameterized search and dashboards. In session 3, we'll cover teams with permissions, data enrichment, and reports. Now we'll tie together alerts, notifications, and parameterized dashboards and take these combined features to the next level. We'll leverage teams and permissions to work faster and more efficiently and understand the value of enrichment in the log data. We'll also take a brief look at reports and how you can use them to deliver information across multiple teams and departments efficiently. Okay, we're going to get into users, teams, and permissions. So let me shift you over to my screen here. And you're going to see in this screen the system authentication menu. This is a configured system for LDAP connecting to the LDAP service, synchronizing users through the groups. So this gives you the summary at the bottom on the right-hand side, the synchronized teams that are built in Graylog and synchronized with the users in LDAP, and above the users that have come across. So let's break this down a little bit. To start this up, you're going to want to have an actual authentication service. So you would create a service with the option of LDAP or Okta. And once you bring that up, you'll bring into your configuration screen the server configuration to connect to your LDAP server. You can choose TLS and certificates. I'm not using TLS at the moment just to run through this demonstration. And then the next is the user configuration. So to synchronize the users, you want to make sure that you've gone into the appropriate search-based DN. I've utilized the PHP LDAP server just for this demonstration, and my OU is people, and it shows here my users. And then in the groups, I've got two groups, security admins and security managers. So in my configuration, I am synchronizing with UUID and the default roles. The next configuration screen we're going to get into is the groups. So what I've done in a previous window, which we'll go through next, is you have to build teams in Graylog. I created the teams that match exactly the security groups that I've built in my LDAP server. That makes it seamless to bring the information over. So from here, what I'm going to do is go to authentication and users and teams. And in users and teams, in the teams overview, you'll see these two teams that I've created. So if we edit the first one, security admins, this is where you add this team. Now it's already synchronized, so I'm not able to edit this team. You can add new teams, or you can add roles to a team. So once you create the new teams and you save them, you assign the selected roles or entities to those teams. And the teams overview will show you all of your individual teams that have been set up. If we go back to system and authentication, and we look at the group synchronization, once you've built your teams and your configuration is set up and synchronized, you can test your usernames here and ensure that you're able to reach your LDAP. So if we go to the authentication services, you can see we've got it deactivated at this current time, or we can deactivate it and reactivate it. In this window, you can trigger your synchronization. So if you just built your teams and you have no users in Graylog yet, and your LDAP is working and you can query your users, you do need to trigger synchronization. So once you say okay, you'll get a message that it's been synchronized and it's created a synchronization of two specific teams, the ones that I built, and it pulled my users over. So once you've synchronized it, any new users you add later will automatically synchronize. This is a great feature for setting up users, dedicated users within Graylog, and not requiring local users inside of Graylog. So it keeps your admin management or your management of your users centralized with your platforms that you're using for privileged access management or just your policies and security policies within your organization so that you can have those users just added to those security groups within your normal AD or your LDAP and ensure that they're seamlessly brought into Graylog with their permissions. So the next spotlight we're going to look at here is the permissions. So we've covered off looking at the server config, user synchronization, and group synchronization, as well as building the teams that you have to specify to link to your security groups in your LDAP. But where you want to change granular configuration, you might want to just go into your individual teams and give them roles, which you see here on the bottom. Security admin's role shows reader and admin. The security managers show reader, report manager, admin. These will be the default settings that the user will get when they're assigned in that group in your LDAP, and they'll automatically assume them. If you want to give them more rights, you'll see the users above here under synchronized users. You can either take away or add additional features to or additional roles to those individual users outside of what the default group withholds. So in this case, if I had a particular user that in a particular group, in this case, I have admin in both. If I didn't have admin in one of, say, security admins or security managers, it doesn't really matter. You can go up and promote that user and give them an admin access to Graylog outside of their security admin. So it's a good way of promoting a little bit higher level of access within Graylog, but you can still disable that user in your AD or LDAP and take that user's information right out of Graylog. It's a way of promoting someone within Graylog. Now that you've got your users authenticating and you've got people linked to your LDAP and synchronizing, I'd like to show you with the actual individual config for each user. So let's get into system and go to users and teams. And what I'd like to do is select the first user, Bill Goetz, and we're going to go to view details. And the view details for this individual user shows basically the profile and settings for the given user and timeout values. There's a lot of additional options. We won't go through every single one, but there are different things for each user you can modify. The email address comes over from your LDAP, so you don't have to worry about that. But we want to look at something called shared entities. So shared entities are anytime a user has had someone shared the content you've created, whether it be in a dashboard or a saved search. So if we go to the users again and we select, I'm going to select Brad Bitt, you're going to see at the bottom that this person has been shared the dashboard called by source dashboard, the all messages stream, and the Guelph HTTP stream, and been given ownership and the capability of manager. So where this shows up, I'm going to step backwards and I'm going to go into dashboards and I'll give you an example. Let's go with the COVID Canadian statistics dashboard. So this dashboard I created quite some time ago and it gets daily updates on the status of COVID in Canada. So in this case, I want to share this to Mr. Goetz, Mr. B. Goetz. So on the right-hand side, when we hit share, because we have our user groups synchronized, I can choose to send this to all user groups in the security admins, all the users in the group for security managers, or send it to everyone, or I can just send it to a given user. So in this case, I'm going to share it to Bill Goetz, and he'll get an email with the link because the email is attached. And I'm going to save that. Actually, you got to add one option. We want to make him a collaborator or an owner. I'm going to make him I'm going to make him a viewer. I just want to make him view it. So we'll hit save. Now, when we go back to system, users and teams, and we look at Bill Goetz, you scroll down, you're going to see now that the entity name or dashboard, as you'll see here, is COVID Canadian Statistics Dashboard, and he is a viewer. So anytime someone's shared anything, you can look at their individual users and look at what they've been shared. This is a great way to share information across teams. So you might be in different departments. There might be some information you're doing in Graylog where you may want to share something that's not cybersecurity specific, not IT operations specific. Perhaps you're using Graylog in your organization for more than just security operations, SecOps, or DevOps. Maybe you're doing something in the financial department, or you're monitoring anything, for example, in your organization that might need to be shared across teams. So from finance to HR or otherwise, it's a good way of sharing things between organizations that have been assigned inside the actual Graylog. Okay, so let's look next at data enrichment. Data enrichment can be a variety of things, and I'm going to cover off one particular type of data enrichment, and that is GeoIP. So all of your traffic going to and from your network, whether with the internet or different locations, you can do an actual geo lookup on those IP addresses and apply them to a map within Graylog. This provides a very good tool to analyze where your traffic's going or where your logins are coming from with cloud or many different types of things. So I'm going to bring you over to my screen here really quickly. And what I'm going to show you is the Illuminate O365 core IP geolocation processing. So what we're doing is a variety of things based off of some configuration for, in this instance, the MaxMind databases. So in my configuration, I have in my server, you can see in this window, the multiple databases, the Geolite databases, which are from MaxMind. And I also have, as of 4.1, we have the IP info databases. So you can choose between two different providers of getting databases. So I've got them both here for testing for purposes of the demonstration. In this demo, I'm going to be covering the MaxMind database, as this is what's been configured in our Illuminate at this point in time in my demo. So here you're going to see a bunch of stages within some rules of doing IP geolocation and processing lookup for host IP addresses. And it's related to the locations, the country, and a variety of other things with the geolocation. So there's quite a bit of information that's being parsed out. There is a substantial amount of information that is now being done within Illuminate to add all of this detail to your IP addresses and knowing where they're going to. So from here, we're going to look at what you would create in the data adapters. So under system lookup tables, and then data adapters, if you wanted to utilize the MaxMind databases or the IP info databases, you would need to actually set them up and put them on your server. So here, where you select the database type, this is where you're going to select either the ASN city or country databases for MaxMind, or you're going to utilize the IP info location database or IP info ASN databases and configure these up and save them. And then of course you do need to create your cache and your lookup tables. We won't go directly into the detailed configuration of the lookup tables, but this is a portion of the configuration that you do need to have for your lookup for GeoIP. Okay, now that we've enriched some data and we're utilizing the GeoIP and GeoIP info for the actual information that we're enriching, I'm going to take you to my instance again. And what we're going to do is look at the field source underscore geo coordinates, and we're going to do a wildcard search on that. And what's going to happen is it's going to show us all the logs that have this field present in it. Here you're going to see the JSON connection to an API, and it's getting longitude, latitude from a given source. We want to narrow this down a little bit more because I have about 4 or 5 different sources providing me normalized data into the source geo coordinates Graylog field. So I'm going to include an and statement for user underscore name, and I'm going to create a wildcard for username. So it has to be both of these fields. As you can see, it hits on the Office 365 logs, and anything to do with file modifications, folders created, logons, anything to do with geolocation of that information. So as you can see with this query is very easy to do. You've basically just highlighted 2 field names with a wildcard value and created an and condition between the two to include both. So just to move this ahead, I'm going to click on an aggregation, and I'm going to add a field in this aggregation. I'm going to group by source GeoCity, and this is going to give you the text name of the cities that the data has been mapped to. I'm going to apply that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this just in the instance of time, and I'm going to modify this one particularly and change the source data to not just be source GeoCity, but I want the entire coordinates, and we're going to change it and set it to go to an actual world map. So we'll update that. And once we've updated it, I'm going to zoom in on the widget. You'll see the visualization is going to save here when I get it exactly where I want it, and apply the changes. And we can extend these out, make them a little bit larger in the map. You can save this as we've done before in the previous sessions, save it as a dashboard, but just in the instance of time, I actually created a dashboard. And the dashboard I created on this screen is with the username parameter. So it's basically consolidating all users with this information in it. This brings us over to reports. So I've created a report, the GeoIP user activity report. And in this report, I'm specifying a particular username. And what I've done is gone to the dashboard, GeoIP activity dashboard that I just showed you, and I'm just including the map. So the map will include the user and all the information in it. If you want, you can modify the content of this report or edit the configuration of the report and drag and drop, add additional fields, whatever you want to have in here. And you can actually schedule it. So you can send it daily, weekly, monthly. If I chose to send it weekly, depending on your scale of time in your dashboard, if it was weekly or monthly, then you can coordinate this delivery of the report to get the appropriate information, the time frame. Here you can say the specific day of the week, time of day, and the UTC, email subject and body, the recipient if it's a user in Graylog or otherwise, and the email address. So now that you've done that, the report can be run and you can see the data showing up on the screen. That ends our session 3 part to this series, Go from Reactive to Fully Proactive with Graylog. Let's recap what we've covered so far in this session. So far, teams and permissions, manage your users and share that data. Data enrichment, add data to your data, like GeoIP information. Parameterize the search and parameterize those dashboards. Reports, schedule those reports with valuable information. And now you've gone from reactive to proactive with Graylog. In this, I hope these 3 sessions will give you the opportunity to think about log management. If you're not utilizing it, or if you are, look at the different opportunities you might have and the way that you might be able to take your manual work and move it in such a way that's a little bit more automated and take some time back into your day. Thanks for joining us in this 3-part series, and let's get to the Q&A. Okay, everyone, let me just bring up my screen here and share out my resource slides. Please feel free to ask any questions or have any comments on this particular 3rd series or comments on any of the series that we had. We'd love to take feedback and move it into any future demos that we have. I have a bunch of questions here to start going through. Some of it's not related to the demo, but that's totally fine. I've got a question from Tad. Would it be better to use _exists_: rather than star? Yes, you are correct, sir. That is a clear determinant search type. Why I chose the search that I did is it will return data, and there are other ways of querying data. But when you query from the very minimal perspective, this is what I was trying to highlight in the video, that you can just highlight the fields in a wildcard and it will actually do a wildcard search. But you are correct. Exists is a great way to cover off how to properly search for data within fields. So that's a good point. Thank you for that comment. It's much appreciated. There's a couple questions here. Let me just bring them up. There is a question regarding Illuminate. What kinds of sources of Illuminate are now available? So the current list is Office 365, Palo Alto, the Okta Spotlight, a large subset for Windows events, and now Sysmon as of Illuminate 1.6, Sysmon is a great tool inside Windows to provide very deep logging capability within Windows to retrieve logs from Windows from processes running where they might be spawning connections to destination IP addresses, changes to processes, duplication of processes. It's definitely a way to log events to provide information on endpoints. I actually have Sysmon loaded in my demonstration here. I have some data, not a ton of data, but I can show you really quickly that we have 4 dashboards. We have the primary, which is the Sysmon overview, and we have 3 others. We have the host investigation drill down, the process drill down. For example, if you wanted to do a drill down on PowerShell and find out what's going on in PowerShell in your entire environment, and the user investigation drill down, so a particular user. With the overview, I'll just extend out my data here really quickly. The overview is the Sysmon operational summary, the network summary, DNS summary, and Sysmon endpoint activity summary. And depending on what data exists, you're going to fill out this information and get valuable information on what's going on with Sysmon and network connections as a relation to process connections. And we'll move into DNS. There's a very large DNS dashboard that we have here for rarest queries, top 10 queries, top 10 DNS event counts by individual host. So as you see certain things branch out, Sysmon is a great way of tracking things. And of course, we have the endpoint activity with heat map and stacked bar charts and endpoint events that are being calculated. So that's just a quick view of our current Sysmon in our environment. There's another question here regarding what is available for training at Graylog. So as of the last few weeks, training has now been opened up. It was initially set up for our enterprise customers, but now anyone can get access to training from our academy at Graylog. If you check out Academy and look for Graylog, you'll see a variety of courses that are being brought out. You'll see analyst courses, our primary course. Abe Abernathy, our trainer, sets you up in a training lab environment in the cloud, and you get access to information from him for scripts and whatnot to run on some machines, and he will have you building up Graylog, installing it, configuring it, and getting data in, and then parsing it out, creating searches and dashboards, and adding value to your data. So it's a very good stand-up. If you haven't utilized Graylog a lot and want to get very familiar, it's a great way to have a course. It is a paid course, so definitely check that out. There's a question here from Felix. Illuminate is a standalone product which can be visualized in Graylog and is a separate product which is not automatically available for Graylog Enterprise. If you actually have the Enterprise edition of Graylog, you actually can get access to the Illuminate content packs. Those content packs are known as spotlights, and you can contact sales and support can get you the links and how to install them. So it is definitely part of the the Illuminate packages as they release. So if you're already paying for an enterprise package, as we release additional content for Illuminate, you'll automatically get that content. Stay tuned, very soon we're going to be announcing quite an expansion on our Illuminate content. So keep an eye on our social media channels. You're going to see new versions of Illuminate come out with spotlights. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm going to leave you that teaser. It's quite a substantial amount coming down the pipe, so keep an eye for that. Question here from Marcel. Do you have a dashboard for NetFlows? Unfortunately, I do not. You are now going to make me add that to mine for sure. I've had that question asked a couple times. It's mainly just getting access to data to be able to represent that. A lot of data you can send in GEL format or syslog formats, but with NetFlows, we do need raw data. If you want to ship me some sample data, I'd love to have it so I could replay it into my Graylog. That would be amazing, Marcel. But we definitely would need to look at adding that to our list, and I should be able to come up with a way with the team to demonstrate that data. As well, look at maybe potentially adding that to the Illuminate list. NetFlow is very common data. Our syslog inputs, there's a question here about syslog. So our syslog inputs, if I bring up the inputs area on my Graylog, we do have a variety of inputs for syslog, and the syslog for TCP, UDP, Kafka, and others. The nice thing about syslog is if you have an endpoint running syslog, if you format the data or format the logs in the RFC 5424 format, 5424 protocol format, it will parse out the data in the fields, and the raw message will appear in the message field. So you won't be required to parse the data directly. The data will be in it. That's what's nice about having the standard format for syslog. It used to be called protocol 23 format, but then the standard became RFC 5424. So if you've got network switches, there's a variety of switches and routers. You can go into configuration and specify that configuration, and that configuration be transmitted in the logs. A similar question came up about inputs. Question regarding beats input on the Graylog logging platform. Beats is utilized for endpoint logs from WinLog Beat for Windows or FileBeat for Linux. They're very common applications utilized to forward logs into Graylog. As a note, with the WinLog Beat format, the sysmon configuration is included in that format, so you can add those events into the WinLog Beat format, and that's how the logs are shipped off. And with our parsing rules and our lookup tables and everything that's integrated, that's where we utilize that capability. There's a question here regarding scaling Graylog, and the question is, how do you scale Graylog? So scaling Graylog is done with nodes in a cluster, and we're primarily, our three applications are MongoDB, Elasticsearch, and the Graylog application. As you need more storage or throughput or processing, then you scale out those respective applications dependent upon how you're configured, whether you need load balancers or not. One small twist on that is we are offering cloud now. So if you find that your clusters are just getting to the point where you want to start offloading the management of all that IT infrastructure, Graylog Cloud is managed by Graylog, and the new component that come out in version 4.1 is called the Graylog Forwarder. And what that is a standalone forwarder. It can be used two ways. If you have an enterprise version, you can set it up. If you have your own localized cluster, you can actually set up forwarders across your network in different regions, and you can have those forwarders collecting logs from those individual regions. Those individual regions, if the logs are coming in and they're a variety of UDP or TCP and the logs are not encrypted, what the forwarder does is encrypt those logs and compresses those logs in transit, sending to the primary node, and that primary node could be your cluster. The other function, and there isn't a limit to how many forwarders you can have out there in your network, the other component of that is cloud. When you go to cloud, you install forwarders in your environment, and what that allows you to do is also encrypt your data up to the cloud from your forwarder. The nice thing about the forwarders, when you configure them, they end up populating inside the 4.1 primary cluster configuration. So as you need to add inputs or add changes to your forwarders, it's done centrally. So whether you're in Graylog Cloud or you're on premise, it's managed locally so that you can actually get that information into Graylog. There's another question here from Ignis. Hi, Mr. Jeff. Can Graylog correlate events with Security Onion by Elasticsearch? So any platform that can ship information as a log file into Graylog, you can create correlation as long as that correlation is being brought into Graylog. Our correlation engine basically looks at multiple types of events. They could be similar events, they could be completely different events, and that's what's nice thing is a nice thing about correlation is I had a demo a few weeks back where I created a correlation, and it was puzzling to many until I explained the correlation, because the correlation actually happened to me personally in my previous position in a different organization outside of Graylog. We had closely been monitoring our HVAC in our server room and ensuring that our temperature, humidity, and a variety of things are kept at a certain range. So we were sending that to Graylog. As we sent that information to Graylog, we were noticing that the HVAC gentleman who was supposed to be doing service on our equipment was always supposed to sign in and check in with us and ensure that we knew he was there. Many times that process would get bypassed and he would come into our server room and get access through maintenance or facility. So we integrated the security card access system and we created a correlation that said, a couple correlations actually. One of the correlations was if there's a change in the humidity controls and or heat, we wanted to look at what was going on and send alerts to us. We also looked at anytime someone walked into the server room, we wanted to know what the type of activity was going on in the room so we could correlate the events going on in the server clusters or in the configuration with who was in the room. The third one that actually worked really well was if we had an issue with the air conditioning and it went down, and 5 minutes earlier we saw the HVAC gentleman badging into the room, we created a correlation on two completely different independent systems, which was event A, the HVAC guy went into the server room, and event B, the air conditioning went down in the room. And we could correlate a couple of things, obviously. There's potential maintenance activity going on, and we've just been notified that HVAC is on site shutting down our air conditioning. So it's just a way of looking at how the data is coming in and where it's coming from. If you can ship the data into Greylog, we can correlate events if it's coming to us. It's a very powerful feature and it gives you the option to do a lot of things. Hopefully that demonstration that or that sample I gave you with what I did with Greylog is something that you can think about and other things in your environment. There's another question here, link with a cluster with, so Ignis, if you could specify what you want to do in your cluster, moreover, what applications you want to link. Are you asking to correlate events with Security Onion with Elasticsearch that you're running in a platform and correlate across the Elasticsearch clusters, or exactly what you mean? I'll try and give you an answer to that. If you can pop that in the window, I'll revisit that and come back around. I've got another question here regarding, covered off training already. There's a question here about the Office 365. Someone here is interested in Office 365 logging with Greylog and wanted to know how they can get the AD Azure logging into Greylog. So how O365 Office 365 logging works is Microsoft will give you additional logs based on your licensing tier. So if you want to get your Azure AD logs into Greylog, that comes as part of the E5 licensing tier. You are limited on the licensing and auditing with the licensing tiers. So as long as you're in that tier, you configure input, you just add that category to the actual log input types, and the Illuminate content will automatically parse that all out and bring that into the dashboards that we've got in part of Illuminate. Okay, looks like we're running out of time and we are going to now look at what's going to happen next. Someone from Greylog will be reaching out to you, and if you have not done so, please check out our social media platforms and anything with our updates that go on. We are taking all these sessions and they are being recorded. So if you check out the screen here, we've got Greylog Oregon events. You're going to see all these available. So if you were here today, but you missed us on the first or second one, please stay tuned on our social media and alerts. We'll have them posted on our page. We appreciate you coming to the sessions that you could make. Lastly, if you want to talk to someone that you saw something in a demo and you want to talk further on, please don't hesitate to give us a shout at info@greylog.com. We're definitely happy to help, and you can fill out a contact sales form in the link that's being provided to you. And as always, thank you for joining us today, and happy logging with Greylog, and have a great day.